Good evening. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Carrabelle City Commission. It's Thursday, February 7th, 2019, 6 p.m. We're in the new Carrabelle City Hall building at 1206 Highway 98 East, and welcome. I'll ask Commissioner Cal Allen to please say the prayer, and then we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and if you'll please stand.
Our Father and God in heaven, we're so grateful that we have this day to live another day in our wonderful country and in this beautiful city. We thank you for all the blessings you've bestowed upon us, especially that we finally got heating and air conditioning. We ask you to be with us in our judgment and wisdom, that we might deal properly with those things that come before us tonight. We're thankful for the wonderful people of this town that come and share their thinkings and help us in our decisions. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move right on into the consent agenda. That's the January 3rd regular meeting minutes and the attorney's invoices. Did everyone have an opportunity to review? Okay. Do we want to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second? We have a motion by Commissioner Millender, a second by Commissioner Walden. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, we have public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to speak. Is there any public comment? Any public comments? Okay, then we'll move right on to the commissioners' reports. And Commissioner Allen, do you have a report this evening?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Mathis?
No, ma'am.
Okey-dokey. And Commissioner Walden? No, ma'am. Commissioner Millender?
No report, just a comment. Very proud to be here in this new facility. Been
All right.
looking forward to it.
Very good. I have a report, and it's a little bit long because I'm going to be thanking some folks, so just bear with me. And if you need to take a nap, go ahead, and we'll wake you up when it's over. But I just want to go ahead and welcome you all again to the new Carrabelle City Hall building. We're finally here in an appropriate, functional, and efficient building from which to conduct city administrative services. Getting here has been a long task, 4.5 years working on it. I stopped counting the number of meetings on this effort back at number 36, back in the spring of 2017. I think by now we must have had over 50 discussions on this relocation. I have numerous people that I want to acknowledge, and I'm going to begin with my husband, Greg. We wouldn't be here today without his unwavering behind-the-scenes support. From the very beginning. Once this location was agreed upon, Greg donated about 100 hours working with Courtney and Chief Huntings and myself to design this floor plan as a conceptual in CAD format, which was finalized by a professional architect for compliance. Greg accompanied me out here multiple times to the job site to make sure that even that the foundation was laid in the proper place, and we took measurements and photos, and he went with me to Mexico Beach and Sopchocky City Halls to take measurements and photos there. He worked with me with the site supervisor. He's got more construction experience than I do, and anytime we saw something that wasn't quite right, we would speak to him. The site supervisor, Danny Watkins, who was extremely helpful, and he did everything he could to make changes and corrections. Greg played a large part in assisting with the move-in over the past couple of weeks. Even down to refurbishing the flagpole from the old building, and that needs to be set in place. We hope to have the opportunity to get that done here within the next week. So it's been a long and arduous endeavor for both of us, and I want to thank you, Greg, and I do appreciate your support. Ms. Pat Bragdon isn't here, but I want to recognize and sincerely thank Ms. Pat Bragdon. as a lifetime resident of Carrabelle, and we all know her. She's a strong supporter and advocate of our city, and she just basically loves her hometown. And Ms. Pat clearly understood that city operations needed to be in a more functional and cost-efficient space, but in a location that would be in the public eye. And the citizens of Carrabelle couldn't afford expensive downtown commercial property on Highway 98. And as an alternative, Ms. Bragdon graciously offered to donate a portion of this property that the building now sits on. And her generous donation equaled 1/2 the purchase price towards this property. And at that point, this location became the most affordable option for a city hall to be with Highway 98 frontage. It's a very convenient spot for over half of Carrabelle's water and sewer customers who reside to the east of the city. Once final closing documents are signed, which we haven't done, that'll be done in early April, I would like to hold a ribbon cutting here and at that time recognize Ms. Pat Bragdon with a memorial plaque placed on the grounds in honor of her gracious donation. Next, I want to sincerely thank the citizens of Carrabelle and all in the surrounding community who offered their support for the project and the ongoing encouragement over these years. Their reassuring pat on the back kept me inspired to push on throughout all the setbacks. And we cannot overlook the citizens of Carrabelle who will ultimately fund the purchase of this building. And on that same day of the ribbon cutting, this building and site should be donated to the citizens of Carrabelle for their part in funding this building. Then we have the Carrabelle City staff who diligently worked with me through thick and thin and sometimes tears. And to finally put together this functional and utilitarian building. It's cost efficient, it's a good looking office building from which to conduct city, police, and water and sewer administrative services. Staff even followed me up and down and back and forth the Forgotten Coast to look at multiple new office buildings for comparison. And I do appreciate their support and helpful contribution with not only what you see here as a structure, but their behind-the-scenes work with contracts, documents, paperwork, spreadsheets, working with contractors, and meetings. And all of these items are still going on regarding this project. After the past 3 years of working with no heat and air, as Commissioner Allen mentioned in his prayer, I know they're all happy to be warm and cool and to have windows and to actually have functional restroom fixtures that flush, turn water on and turn it off. So Courtney and Chief Huntings, who isn't here, and Miranda and Charlie and Keisha all played a major part along with the assistance of the Streets and Roads Police and Water and Sewer Departments. And then I must recognize Mr. Russell Large. He was the project engineer and the go-between between the architect and building contractor. Russell designed the overall grounds layout and parking lot and played a large part in almost every public and behind-the-scenes project discussion. Administrative services could not have relocated anywhere in the city without his professional input, and I do appreciate it. And even through the hectic times, Russell remained courteous and mild-mannered, helping us with solutions and the difficult design decisions. So thank you, sir. And of course then, who's left? Mr. Dan Hartman. And he's played an invaluable and necessary part in all of this by providing his legal counsel and guidance and attending meetings and preparing contracts and making sure we were working and moving forward in a legal manner while always remaining calm and diplomatic. Dan is a diplomatic type of person, and he had the easy part of it all. He didn't have to get involved in things like designing the floor plan or site plan layouts or color schemes. So, and I haven't forgotten the commission members, 9 commission members over the years who have been involved with the project discussions, pros and cons, and those who played a part in the major decision making. After all the heated discussions and difference of opinions, the commission ultimately came to a consensus that resulted in this new, modern, built-to-code, energy-efficient building that just demonstrates Carrabelle's positive outlook for its future by investing in itself. And thank you kindly to those commissioners now and then who had the foresight and courage to take this step. And I will say, I believe we need to hold, we might need to hold a special meeting for discussion on a few remaining issues regarding this building and operations, as well as the decommissioning and the disposition of the old school building. But as I look over the agenda, I'm going to suggest and ask Mr. Hartman, I think we might find a couple of more items that will require additional discussion and maybe a special meeting. So, Mr. Hartman, can we address that item of scheduling a special meeting immediately before adjourning? Can we do that, although it's not on the agenda?
You can absolutely publicly announce a special meeting during the meeting tonight.
Yes, if we deem we need one.
Yes,
Okay.
and then we post notice around town and that sort of
Okay.
thing. Yes.
So before we adjourn, I'll ask everyone, and we'll just see how it goes over the evening. Then I want to say on January 22nd, Courtney and Charlie and I met with Mr. John Curtis at the new summer camp. He's the new summer camp community manager out there, and Courtney's going to discuss this more under her report. And then with very little notice, I gave a presentation at the legislative delegation meeting on January 30th, where I requested funding for the Lighthouse Estates Water Extension Project. Commissioner Allen and Courtney and Ms. Tamara also attended this meeting. And again, with very little notice, Courtney, Russell, and I worked quickly to develop an appropriations request and narrative that was submitted to the Florida Senate and House on February 4th. And this too is going to be discussed in more depth during Courtney's report. And the Franklin County Board of County Commissioners just reappointed me to represent the two municipalities here in Franklin County on the Appalachia Regional Planning Council. That's all for me. I wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day next week. And then Mr. Hartman, your report.
Yes. Actually, everything that I have to report is covered on the agenda.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Ms. Courtney.
We are scheduled for the installation for our permanent city hall sign for next Thursday. So they've sent pictures, it looks really good. The one that's out here now is just a temporary sign. If y'all didn't know that, but the permanent sign will be here next Thursday. If some of y'all have called City Hall this past week, you may have noticed that you don't really get anyone. Kind of the phones were temporarily, they were somewhat working, but not really correctly. But they've been here today and everything should be back up and running correctly now. The building security system is fully installed and operational. As Brenda mentioned, that we were only notified about a week in advance of the February 5th deadline to submit for the 2019-2020 Florida House appropriations request by Franklin County. So the request form and the narrative had to be prepared quickly and submitted to both the House and the Senate on February the 4th. So what we asked was that the appropriations request be for $630,000 to fund the Lighthouse Estates Water Extension Companion Project septic to sewer. This was one that we already had shelf ready, so that's why we picked that one. So I'm going to ask you to make an approval retroactive for us to submit for that application.
And so you'd like a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve Courtney's request.
I'll second.
Okay, that motion is by Commissioner Millender and second by Commissioner Allen. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And then that motion carries.
Also, we've previously talked about applying for USDA funds for the water portion of that septic to sewer at the Lighthouse. And we are asking for, USDA needs a letter of approval to apply for the loan through a letter of intent. So I am asking for approval for us to send a letter of intent to USDA to apply for the loan.
Okay. Did everyone see us, that sample letter of intent?
I'm not getting a funny look, but we did talk about this, and Russell is, for Russell to do his preliminary engineering, and that's what this is for.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. And we have a motion by Commissioner Mathis to approve to submit a letter of intent to the USDA for application of a loan. Now, this does not.
It does not obligate us to anything. If Russell's gonna do his preliminary report, and they'll tell us if we're eligible for funding or not, that even if we are eligible, we're not obligated to take any kind of loan or grant or anything, they just need a letter to go through the process.
And we have a motion by Commissioner Mathis.
I'll second.
Okay, and we have a second by Commissioner Allen. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just have a quick question. Courtney, what was the amount on that? We were giving you a funny look. I remembered it, but my mind went to the FDOT grant for the airport. But anyway, what was the amount on that?
It's $630,000.
$630,000?
It's the same as the legislative request.
As a legislative request, yeah.
I'm hoping we get funded through the legislative request, and we won't need the USDA,
Exactly. Okay.
but try for both of them, maybe get one of them.
Thank you.
And I believe they did talk about there might be a little bit of grant funding that would alleviate some of the principal requests.
Yeah, that's correct. There's a possibility that it will not be solely a loan. There may be a grant component as well. But we need to submit the information and they make that determination.
All right. Okay, so is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then that motion carries.
January the 22nd, I met with John Curtis, Charlie, and Mayor Paz was with me at summer camp. Mr. Curtis is the new, I'm not sure what his
Community
title is.
manager is what
Community
it's called.
manager for summer camp here at St. Joe. And they are proposing that, they're requesting that the city of Carrabelle take over their water and sewer for summer camp. So I know Russell can speak a little bit more to that, and Charlie also. What we're asking for is gonna be Russell, if we're wanting to move forward with this, Russell's gonna need a task order to keep looking into it,
To do a cost analysis.
to do a cost analysis.
When this offer was made at one time before, they were willing to extend our water line out to the site, water and sewer lines. Do you know?
It was a different group of people, and we haven't really went into what they are. They're willing to give us their property for their water plant and their sewer plant. However, we haven't discussed how we would run that, or if we would tie into our water or run their systems, or.
Okay,
Now, it's much smaller than it was at one time. At one time, we had all the property to the north,
yeah.
and they no longer own that. So we're only looking at the properties to the south right there. They have two phases.
Okay. That would be good if we could get that done again.
We need to look into what it's gonna cost, and if it's worth going forward with or not.
Well, that's my thinking. Courtney and I talked about it. I think we need to plow a lot of ground before we invest any money. There are, and Charlie's the one to do this, that's his specialty, is, you know, it paying for itself and what kind of investment that they're expecting out of the city of Carrabelle, et cetera. And is it gonna be cost effective, pay for itself, pay for its operation, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, you've gotta have clients on board out there, and right now, summer camp doesn't have that many customer base. There's only maybe a dozen in the whole development at this time. But anyway, that's my opinion. I think we need to investigate, do quite a bit of investigation with an interest in it, before we spend money into it. That's just my opinion.
And I feel the same way. I don't think we should close the door on the offer.
No.
And the cost analysis is the first step towards investigating. So we will have to spend money on that to do a cost analysis. We did that back when we were considering taking over water management services on St. George Island, or when they made an offer that they were trying to sell that system to the city of Carrabelle. We had to do an extensive cost analysis on that. And we ultimately decided not to because of the antiquity of the system. But this is much different. This is a newer system. Russell's been out there and looked at it. Charlie's looked at it. Both the water and sewer department are operational facilities. You've been inside them. And I do know we just talked earlier and reviewed that there's certainly less than 20 homes out there. And one of the major items that they're going to have to see are when the lots were sold, tap fees. Were they sold with the tap fees were going to be a certain rate, because that's where you would make the money back on the investments. Your monthly rates just pays your operational fees cost. How many tap fees were pre-sold when individuals purchased lots? Did they have a tap fee did they buy the tap fee at that time? Did St. Joe Company, have they already collected the money for the tap fees? If that has happened, then we'll have to do some serious negotiating. But all of this would be found out through a cost analysis. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. There's some connections that we'd have to consider. Do we start their plant up and operate their plant, or do we pump it back to Carrabelle's plant? What's the cost of each of those options? What's the long-term maintenance cost of each of those options? So there's some feasibility analysis that I think needs to take place, for sure.
But it's a long-term investment, putting Carrabelle to be a regional supplier of water and sewer services, which that is the intention with the 2 water plants and the large advanced wastewater treatment plant. But we may not, in our tenure here, we might not see it pay for itself. So
Certainly worth looking into.
yes, I agree. So do we need a motion for a task order if we would like to have?
If you would like to move forward and have a cost analysis, we need a motion for a task order.
I just question if we're at that stage yet. There's still a lot of unanswered questions from St. Joe at this point, in my mind.
There is.
Yep.
Does Charlie have anything to add to that?
I mean, I'm with everybody else. It's well worth investigating, but I actually am not too excited about spending the city of Carrabelle's tax-paying money on a facility out there if it's not going to be cost-effective. And again, I think we're at the stage, we're at the beginning stage. We need to find out a lot of answers to a lot of questions before we go in much deeper. That's just my opinion. Because again, St. Joe hasn't, from what you guys told me thus far, St. Joe hasn't made anything other than just a contact.
That's right. Did you have some input, Mr. Horton?
I do. Just
Okay.
a quick one. Is when I wear a different hat, I do a little bit of this stuff around the state. And one thing, St. Joe's looking to offload this onto this, not offload it, but have the city take over because it's not financially, doesn't make sense for them financially. So, but what I've seen is maybe a third path that Russell and staff can look at would be that they're a bulk customer of the city. They're a certificated utility with PSC now. So they have their own operation, they're their own entity, but until they get to a certain size, it's hard to understand how it would make financial sense, what Mr. Miller's talking about, but to give them some, call it growing room, and the big expense to them is running those plants and everything else that they're running, that we're also running, and we both literally have the same problem. We have more capacity than we're able to use. But, and I don't know if this is even feasible, but it would be, Russell could tell us not now, but once he looks at it, is to provide them bulk water and sewer, let them operate their utility and simply get a bulk sewer and water and sewer rate from us. And then when it gets to a certain size, we could take it on, but
And there's also the possibility, if we take in the Lighthouse Estates, what's the term, economy of,
Economy scale.
yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, but adding 20 users
uh,
that far out at the end of the line, it's a tough one to.
Tough
It
one to
is.
grab.
It is, really.
And
And they did talk about a lot of development, but all of the development they talk about is putting a boat ramp in, an RV park on the north side of 98, a convenience store, a hotel. All of that would certainly require permitting through Franklin County,
Correct.
county commissioners, and we don't, we can't predict the future on that one. And that would take time too. That's not gonna happen overnight.
And I see a big commitment up front of connection, and from where we stop right now, all the way out to the Y. That's gonna be a costly, right, Charlie?
Sure.
To run that on out, that'd be a big expense.
Right.
Thanks.
That's where we were talking about with Russell, is trying to figure that out. St. Joe had come to us and said that they wanted to dissolve their utility. They don't want it anymore. That's where this started at. So, and again, the mayor had mentioned that the tap fees, we're not sure about that. There is a little bit of legwork that can be done. But I've been out there with Russell, and I've been out there with the mayor and Courtney, and talked to the man, and yes, there is pipe that'll have to be connected on their end and connected to us. They still have work to do as well. And how willing they are to finish their jobs without any cost to us is what we need to look at. Some of them questions can be presented between now and next month, and maybe next month would be the time to do the task order. But eventually, if we're gonna go forward, we would have to have Russell look at how much it's gonna cost to put or somebody anyways, look at how much money it's gonna cost to put pipe in the ground, and how much of that they're gonna cover, or if they're gonna cover all of it. And then we would have to you all would have to make the decision whether that's cost effective for us or not. There's no real income out there right now. And as the mayor mentioned, the tap fees were the biggest thing out there. As a house comes on, the tap fees are what would bring in some money quickly. So you got they're looking at 500 houses out there for 98, I think is what he said. And like I said, 10, 15, less than 20 houses out there right now. He did talk about putting an RV park in and all the other things. And they want to open up the area from Sands North condos up to their sales office. They want to put houses in there. That area there probably would sell because it's all beachfront. So again, we do need to go a little bit further with it, and there's a couple questions we could ask them about the tap fees and stuff. But I don't have enough information to go further without Russell in my mind. I can't put numbers on paper.
Well, I agree, but I think again, what I said, I think we're in the talking stage, and we need to have some more go forward, have more communication with St. Joe, and find out the direction we're gonna go before we invest any money. That's just my opinion. Again, yeah, I was on the Franklin County P&Z, that's under a PUD out there, and it was approved for 499 units in 2005, and it's 2019, and there's a dozen and a half homes max out there. There's a lot of things to look at, but at that Russell can do when we get to that point. But my feeling is right now is the door of communications with St. Joe and staff and the mayor and you and whoever, even me or whomever, open the door and try to get the answer to some of these questions to see if we need to go forward with it. That's my opinion.
Okay, now, I'm just trying to figure out how to do it because I would think if the commissioners have questions that we need to get a list of those questions developed. And do we want to have Mr. Curtis come and speak to us? Do we want to have here's an opportunity for a special meeting. Do we want to have a special meeting and have Mr. Curtis come and talk to us, bring us maps and answer our questions? That's a possibility. Or do we want to, all of the commissioners and others develop questions and have Courtney and Charlie go out and talk with Mr. Curtis? Just trying to develop some options here.
I like your first idea there, to have a special meeting and have him come out and lay out, and then we can talk with him directly on some things.
I agree with that.
All right. And then, we'll, all right, let's put that on our list for a special meeting when I schedule a special meeting at the end of before we adjourn, okay?
All right, on January 29th, the mayor, Chester Butler, and I had a phone conference with the ARPC regarding the coastal management and environmental assessment workshop for our comprehensive plan. And I've also been working with FEMA representatives to develop Carrabelle's program delivery plan for FEMA's public assistance grant program. So we're still working on that, and we'll continue to do that until we get everything entered into the computer. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. And Ms. Keisha, the city clerk report.
I have a plaque certificate of completion for Mayor La Paz, and they wanted the letter read aloud. Dear Mayor La Paz, thank you for participating in the IEMO. It's the Institute for Advanced for Elected Municipal Officers 4 Municipal Leadership Program last month. I'm hopeful you found both the intensive exploration of personality type and the expansive conversations about the future of Florida cities well worth your time. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. For our part, I want to acknowledge how inspiring we found the discussions on Saturday. The collection of your discussion summaries have been shared with others at the League. There may be the seed of new approaches or new initiatives there. Enclosed, you'll find your certificate of completion. Please help us to continue to provide you with knowledge and effective colleagues in municipal government. Spread the word about IEMO, AIEMO, IMEO3, IEMO4, and I put the dates on your boxes too. You know the value you have derived from your experiences and benefits of such training offers your city. Encourage your colleagues in your own city, in your region, and across the state to take advantage of these and other training opportunities offered by the League. Finally, some of you were asking about being able to come to IEMO 4 next year. Unlike the other IEMOs, IEMO 4 is designed to be repeated, particularly the Saturday program. We want to ensure that the experiences is available to others as well, and that the conversations can be as free-wheeling as they were. This does preclude two elected municipal officials who serve together on a board covered by sunshine from attending together. So if there is someone else from your municipality who is eligible and wishes to attend next year, I would ask that you encourage them to do so, and look forward to joining us in 2019. If there isn't someone else eligible and interested, we'll be delighted to see you again next year. Thank you for your continuing dedication to your city, to public service, and to the future of Florida. Sincerely, Lynn Tipton, Director of the Florida League of Cities University.
Okay, well, thank you. And I think that was in November.
That was November 16th.
It said last month, and I don't remember much, but thank you.
Congratulations. Good job.
So I did put the dates, let me know and get with me, so like she said, we don't schedule two of you to go at the same time.
But to get into the IMO 3 and 4, I had to take an exam first just to get into it. So anyway, but I passed it. So, all right, so anything else?
I did also want to let y'all know I am going to the Region 3 conference this month, the 19th through the 22nd, which is Alabama, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina city clerks. So this is a very rare opportunity that they have it close enough that we can attend without having to fly somewhere. So I'll be going to that as I'm working towards, I'm a certified municipal clerk. I'm working towards my master's municipal clerk. So. It is in, it's north of Atlanta, just there in a little small town. Normally they're in Nevada and just all over the place. And that's all I have.
Okay, do y'all have any questions for Ms. Keisha? All right then, next up is Mr. Large with Inovia.
Okay, to update you on our projects. On Avenue B, the phase 1 and now phase 2 construction is underway. The curb and gutter is almost completed. Right now they're waiting on the drainage structures to be delivered to the site, and they'll install those next, along with the pipe you see laying in the right of way. That construction is progressing at a good pace at this point. Substantial completion is scheduled for March 29th and final completion on May 15th.
Avenue B is moving along well.
Yes, it is.
And it looks good. I wish it could have happened that way, but it's doing really good.
Yeah. Secondly, on Keogh's addition, we did receive bids. We had a low bid of $356,508.57. That was from Dixie Paving and Grading. So we would recommend that the commission award that project to the low bidder, Dixie Paving and Grading. Assuming that you move tonight to award that project, we would issue the notice of award and begin to execute the contract, and we would anticipate to begin construction date of 28 February. And the completion of construction would be scheduled for 28 June of this year.
Okay, we have an agenda item for that one.
Thank you, I didn't recognize that, thank you. City Hall, there are actually three remaining punch list items. One is the as-built survey, an updated as-built survey. Second is a pipe video that's required to be provided. And the third issue that I want to bring up is the asphalt. And the contractor has advised that any further repair at this point would require saw cutting and patching. As an alternative, the contractor has offered to provide a 5-year guarantee to replace the area of the small depression if the pavement shows signs of deterioration or failure within that time frame. So just bring that to the board for your consideration.
Okay, we'll want to talk about that before we leave you.
Okay.
Before your turn.
Okay.
Okay.
Certainly. We're continuing with the septic sewer design and also the companion water projects. I did place a phone call to the Water Management District, Mr. Paul Thorpe, earlier this week to inquire as to the status of the septic to sewer project, which would be phase 2 in my house. And he indicated that a decision on funding for that would be made sometime around June. And he did think it would be favorable at this point. That's all I had.
Okay, all right, thank you. So back then to the City Hall, the remaining punch list items. I did see them doing a video yesterday. They were out
Okay.
filming Steady Away. But the bird bath in the parking lot, and I know that's been kind of a sore spot with myself and Commissioner Walden and Millender, you know, we've all talked about it. And what do you all think about it?
I personally don't want to see a patch.
You don't want to see a patch, and Mr. Walden?
I don't want patches.
Okay.
I'd rather take the offer of the 5-year warranty. I think a patch, in my opinion, would just be more of an issue. That's just my opinion.
And for me, I think, you know, as I see out on city streets, a patch, that's just an opportunity for deterioration, segmentation, potholes. what do you think? Would you rather just take a 5-year warranty, let the bird back? I mean, and now I'm telling you, it takes about 12 hours for it to dry up, and I know y'all have watched it.
And he would pay for that one in 5 years if it needs it.
Well, what does that, if it what's he talking about?
Well, the term it used was a guarantee.
Mhm.
So if it shows signs of deterioration, which would be cracking, failure would be obvious, that they would cut it and patch it at that point.
In other words, you'd still get a
It's a shame.
I would also suggest that, at the pleasure of the board, that we would draft that in the form of a signed agreement, and I would think your attorney could develop appropriate language for that, just to make sure they're on the hook for it.
Russell, don't you agree with kind of going in that direction from your standpoint versus the fact?
I do, yes, I do.
So, are we all in agreement then that we're going to let the bird bath stay as is? Because honestly, I'm afraid to start out with a patch on a brand new.
Do you need a motion on it?
What do you think, Mr. Hartman? Do we need a motion? Do we need to task you with writing a little agreement that we're going to accept it as is, and then if it shows wear or cracking within the next 5 years, they'll replace it with a patch?
I can draft a small agreement, is it?
EJCDC.
So it's probably, it's form driven.
I'm not
agree on
sure
our
that
part.
particular issue is.
They need to give us
Right, we
something
need
right.
something written.
Yeah, then I can prepare something for them to sign, so we have that commitment.
Commissioner Millender, if you have a motion in mind, it's your pleasure.
Well, do we need it?
We don't need a motion, you guys are directing me to do it.
Yes,
That's
sir.
something we need to have done. Yeah.
Okay. All right then. Is there anything, do y'all have any other questions for Mr. Large? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right then, thank you. Okay, then we'll move on to the advisory board reports, and Ms. Keisha, would you hand Tamara the microphone? Thank you. And we have Ms. Tamara, Waterfront Partnership report.
Yes, you'll notice there's not a lot of change in my report. Some things are going very, very slow, and some things are moving right along. So I'm gonna just hit a highlight or two of what's going along. When I met with you last, my report said that we had had the this little flyer is actually the announcement. The Waterfront Partnership is sponsoring through Carrabelle Cares the 3rd annual Carrabelle Culture Crawl. And it's going to be Saturday, March the 23rd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I know that you're all familiar with previous years where we've had music and art on the street and mermaids and costume characters. And the restaurants and shops in downtown have said that it's been one of their best days of the year financially. So we're just trying to help encourage that economic development opportunities. We're finding that history events like the one we held last month, we had 307 people who actually registered and attended the talk on the shipwrecks of Dog Island last week, which, as we all might have noticed, not only filled up every parking space in the entire city, but restaurants and stores and all reported a very good economic return on that. And so we had never really thought of that as an economic opportunity, but it really turned into one. So we'll continue to look at ways to use those in a very positive way. The most, there is the talk on the shipwrecks was videotaped. The TDC paid to get it videotaped and edited, and it's being finalized right now. And then it'll be loaded on YouTube, and we'll be able to refer people to it or download it and have it available for folks that want to. There's been a great demand for us to do it again, but we really can't. We can't get, the gentleman can't come back to do it again. So I think the videotape will be the next best thing to having it again. So we're very excited. That the lighting was very peculiar, so it's kind of either all blue or all red. We get a choice, but hopefully it's very easy. You can hear it well, and it looks, you can read the slides real well. The most exciting thing, we finally, after 4 tries, we finally got the architects and the state, at the State Historical Preservation to agree with our architects on the renovations of Phase 5 of the Justice Building. And although I thought we had accomplished that in January, it turned out that it wasn't so. So we finally had that done last week. So in the process of one of the items I'm working on under historic preservation is the National Register plaque for the Justice Building, Old City Hall. And the more we research the building, the more we're finding information that is new to us. And one of the things we found were some information about the incorporation of when Oliver Hudson Kelly incorporated the town actually of Carrabelle. And it turned out that it was in 1881, which is 12 years before it was chartered by the legislature. So the information about that, we tracked it down to the clerk of the court, and thanks to Mark Curington, we were able to not only get a copy of the actual handwritten papers, but he also helped us transcribe it so that we now know who the 19 citizens who went to the county and signed basically a petition asking for the creation of the town. And so what I've shared with you tonight there was is a copy of the 2 documents that are there in the clerk's papers. One of them is actually the petition from the citizens with the 19 signatories, and the other one is more description of the process they went through of having meetings and who showed up, who didn't show, and all those things. So it's interesting in that way. But so we immediately went to work on finding out who these people were, and we were only aware of 2 of them, Mr. Oliver Hudson Kelly, who of course is well known to us, and Mr. Blocker, who was involved with the Civil War. So we're trying to track down all the other characters that were part of the original signatories on that. And so if any of you know who the Storr family and the Reynolds family and some of the others there that are familiar names, then we're getting in touch with folks like Mr. Putnell that will have some information on that, looking through papers that we have from our previous historians. So, but that was on Tuesday. We got that information. On Friday, we had a visit from a man who graduated, lived here as a child and graduated from here, who's a history nut. And he walked in with photographs of the Allen family members. You know, so far as we know, no cousins of ours, but perhaps way back in Virginia someplace. Leroy Allen and his son, J.A. Allen, that are on that list. And then the man, Abraham Allen, that's on that list, is actually a slave, former slave of Mr. Leroy Allen's. And he was one of the people that signed for that too. He decided to stay here and work for Mr. Allen after he was emancipated. So it's like somebody just opened a whole new book of our history. And so that was from a historic point of view, it's very exciting. From a city stand, I don't know that you're all gonna be all that excited about it, because the first question comes to mind is, well, so was the city established in 1881? And what we have on all our signs is 1893, which is when it was chartered by the legislature. So I don't know from a legal point of view if chartering by the legislature is more significant than being incorporated by a group of townspeople. But I think it's more official when it was chartered. But, Mr. Hartman, do you know the answer to that? Is it the chartering by the legislature or the incorporation in the county?
I believe it's the incorporation.
It's the incorporation is the date?
Yep.
So what you gain by getting a charter then is just you get home rule, you get more ability to
And
chart
you're
your
talking
own.
about county home rule versus non-county home rule, because it doesn't affect us, meaning as far as the city.
Why would you seek chartering, I guess is the question. If you're incorporated, why would it be in your best interest to get chartered?
I-
To go by.
Well, and certainly we can discuss that otherwise, but I think the original date is probably the incorporation.
Because it talks about how they want to hold elections and how they want to.
Yeah, and when I say this, it's a different process. There's the county statutory chartering process, and then city charters are literally incorporation documents for the city. So it's a different, cities are a different animal than counties.
Okay, well, so we'll take the oldest one, I guess. But anyway, from a historic point of view, it's very exciting to know who the people were that were here that started the city. And that was a huge amount of information that we were totally unaware of. And now we have photographs of 4 of them at this point. So that's sort of all happened last week. And I don't have any other information for you, but I wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Pam.
All right, then our next item on the agenda is the Carrabelle Aviation Advisory Board report. And Mr. Sullivan isn't able to be here tonight, but I see Mr. Jim Bryan is here. And we know that we already have our regular monthly report from the advisory board. And I see right off that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 positive comments on this report. The fence project's going to start up as soon as if we adopt a resolution that we're going to talk about tonight. The hangar A is now rented to a 2-engine owner. It's the first time we've ever had a 2-engine aircraft at the Carrabelle Airport that any of us know of. The new hangar is about to start construction again next week on the site on the drainage, and the runway taxi light repair is going to be repaired on the 21st, so that's some good positive progress out there. Mr. Sullivan and the CAA board, we requested from them at last month's meeting to give us some recommendations regarding the Kimberly Horn, the 196-page report on the asphalt damage that was that they assessed that was done during the staging. And at their 21st meeting, they discussed and analyzed the Kimberly Horn pavement evaluation in lengthy detail. And their goal was to determine a reasonable amount to request for repair of damage. You have their report here. It's easy to read. 6 pages. I had one item that I wanted to mention here on the pre-mobilization immediately before the hurricane staging. Recovery Logistics was warned that the pavement at the airport was not built for heavyweight traffic and damage would occur to the pavement if areas of staging proceeded. And an alternate site was offered, which was the industrial building. And that site was used for staging in 17, and it went very well. They realize, and of course we all do too, that there's no way that the airport can be brought back to brand new condition, and you certainly wouldn't want to ask them to bring it back to brand new condition. They would expect that it's brought back to at least some semblance of what it was on the day before the staging occurred. And their main concern is the extensive damage to the apron. That's where most of the staging occurred. And they felt like too, as we do with the parking lot out here, that patchwork repair, if done, which is the alternative number one offered by Kimley Horn, if the apron is repaired in a patchwork fashion, that you're just gonna have the same pothole segmentation, but more of it, because there's a lot of patchwork that needs to be done out there. And then what they did, they developed a formula to determine a reasonable amount to request, and they described that formula, I believe, for each amount. They broke it down to apron, runway, taxiway, and run-up apron. And they have their formula listed there for each amount that they're requesting or recommend to us. And the total amount is $521,700. And so the board, the CAAB board, recommends to this commission to submit the 196-page Kimley Horn pavement assessment and their report of the recommendations for reimbursement to Recovery Logistics and to Duke Energy at the same time. So I'm going to ask the attorney to advise us on what he thinks.
I think that is, yeah, the initial step is to submit those invoices with the report and seek reimbursement from both Duke Energy and Recovery Logistics and see what kind of response we get, and we'll go from there. But
and you had a copy of their recommendations as well to review.
A lot of money.
Now I would like to ask the commissioners what they think and feel about it. Hello?
I mean, I can tell you this, I think obviously we submit it and let's see what response we get. I mean, we don't have a decision to make other than submitting it. I think with all the emergency funding and different things that went on, we want to submit it sooner rather than later because that money dries up quick when they move on to other natural disasters and things. But, you know, we submit it and see what kind of response we get, and then we'll know, hopefully we'll have options on what to do.
My comment's the same as it has been in the last two. I would think that Duke Energy and this other organization has a responsibility to correct whatever they damaged within reason, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And as I say, the one alternative number 2 was major rehab, which was $2,730,000. And that, you know, we'll all agree, and even the advisory board agrees that's not within reason. That would bring it back to almost a brand new condition, and it wasn't in a brand new condition when they took the site over.
It has a lot of age on it.
Yeah. So, and to put repair out there and put patches is just opening up potential for potholes, and we know that type of aircraft can't manipulate over potholes. So, then we'll do we need to have a motion, Mr. Hartman, to submit this? We can.
No, I don't think so. I think we can begin that campaign with the administrator submitting it.
All right.
I can follow up on it. Let's shake the tree, see what falls out.
All right, so we'll direct then Ms. Courtney just to submit the Kimley Horn report and the advisory board report.
I'll agree with that.
Okay, all right then.
I would add that the critical thing is what are its plans in the future? You know, if we patch it up and then we have a need for, you know, bigger development, then we'd have more patching and fixing up to do, but if we could get it done right the first time, sometimes that's better.
Yeah.
Just,
Okay.
Mayor, can I ask a question
Yes,
since
sir.
we're on the aviation report to go back? Did I understand that the new hangars are about ready to be?
They're starting, they have actually, I understood from Mr. Burt Worthy told me that they delivered pipe out there yesterday, about, he thinks it's about 8-inch diameter PVC pipe where they're getting ready to lay the French drain. But they want to do locales first, to locate the underground power out.
So they're moving forward with it?
Yes, they
Okay.
are.
And the aircraft hangar that's been rented to the double-engine aircraft was a vacant one?
That was the Grantham hangar.
Okay.
It has been rented, it's been
Released?
released, so we're renting that out.
Okay.
February the 1st, I believe.
I believe that was around the
Okay. Thanks. That's all I have.
It's good positive activity going on out there. All right then. Okay, so next we have Mr. Magnan, the Carrabelle HR Committee report. And he may need, Mr. Bryan can direct him to the microphone.
Oh, right there.
That's a new podium, Mr. Magnan.
Yes, that's very nice, thank
Okay.
you. The entire building is very, very nice, and the ADA modifications are just great. And so I'm glad that, that was taken into consideration, and I think everybody who did this, worked on this project, did a wonderful job. And,
Thank you, sir.
so, the Carrabelle Human Resource Committee met one time in January, on January 4th, which was one day after the city commission meeting. We decided to postpone cancel the other meeting that was normally scheduled in January due to the move here and other factors, that we just thought it would be better for all concerned to skip one meeting, and then we'll be back at it on February 13th. I think the meeting on January 4th was very useful, and it turned into what I think is a kind of a meeting where a lot of, I'm looking for the words, what is it? A brainstorming meeting, yes, thank you very much. I couldn't come up, I get the brain, but not the storm, so. And that's actually what it was. It was, and I wrote a report on that, and I hope you all received it. If you haven't had a chance to read it, and one thing I want to make clear is that the brainstorming that we did during that meeting was just that, and it's nothing that was written in stone, but we did come up with some ideas, and I'd just like to make kind of a little list of what some of those ideas are, and it concerns the evaluation form that we're putting together for the city employees. Some general consensus or some ideas were that we would use the same form for all employees of the city. The form would be a template on a city computer or computers that the supervisor, the department head could fill out on computer. There would be a list of 10 to 12 areas that would be rated on a 1 to 5 numerical basis, with 1 being the lowest score and 5 being the highest score. Each one of those numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, would be defined as to what they mean. It would have a meaningful definition. So if somebody received a 3 on, let's say, something called motivation, it would describe that number 3, what that number 3 means for not only that item, but any item. So at the end of those 10 to 12 areas that are evaluated, you would come up with a score, an overall score for each employee. If there were 10 areas that were being evaluated and the person got a perfect score, that score would be a 50. If the person received only a 1 on all of those, it'd be a 10. So there'd be a 10 to 50 point range. you could use that number for various things when looking at it as a department head or as a commissioner. You know, to kind of evaluate what kind of performance each city employee has been rated by their department head. So, and then you could use that, if you wish, to determine raises if monies were available, if funds were available for that. It would just give you a general idea of the performance of each employee of the city. There would also be written, we came up with 3 areas that the department head would write some comments on, including, you know, the person's strengths and their positive job performance, positive comments. Areas that a person can work on is number 2. And number 3 would be some goals for the coming year for that particular employee, whether that be to seek out a certification or to take an educational course or develop a new skill. So that's kind of what we came up with. Courtney's going to, before the next meeting on February 3rd, come up with kind of a sample evaluation form that we can kind of take a look at and refine and make changes if we feel that's necessary. But that's a general idea of the direction the committee is going in for individual employee evaluation forms. Our next meeting will be on February 13th, and we'll also meet tentatively on the 27th of February. We also thought that we should invite somebody from the Streets and Roads Department to be represented on the committee when we're working towards the completion of an evaluation form. So Courtney was going to invite Dustin from the Streets and Roads Department to sit in at our next meeting, so that every city department is represented at the meeting and has input into what we're working on. So that's about it, and we're just working towards that evaluation form, and then we'll move on to the other areas that we're going to address.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do you all have questions for Mr. Magnan?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I'm proud to see that everyone is in agreement to get the evaluation form in a digital PDF format, so that will preserve the record for eternity. It can't be changed, in an easy file record keeping in digital format.
I've got one question. Do you think that includes our city commissioners?
Well, that would be up to you. I mean,
I think it should.
No.
The citizens do.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
The citizens,
Thank you,
yes,
Mr.
Ms.
Tom.
Tamara
Thank
said
you
the
very much.
citizens do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do that at the voting booth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, then, it's Mr. Hartman's time to shine, and under public hearing, we've got quite a few items. We'll start out with resolution number 012019, vacating the alley running east and west on block 51-10 on the Carrabelle City plat.
All right, this is a resolution number 01-2019, resolution of the City Commission of the City of Carrabelle, Florida, vacating the alley shown on block 51-10 for the plat of the City of Carrabelle and providing for an effective date. Whereas the City of Carrabelle is approved this alley duly incorporated with all the rights and powers as provided in Section 2B, Article 8 of the State Constitution. Whereas the owner of block 5110 located within the City of Carrabelle has requested that the city vacate the alley located adjacent to its property shown on Exhibit A. Whereas the vacation of the unimproved alley shown on the city plat running over and across block 5110, this vacation abandonment will not affect the ownership or right of convenient access of persons owning other property in the city. And whereas within at least 15 days, public notice has been provided to obtain public comment on this resolution and proposed vacation of the property described, and the commission having considered all written oral comments received during the public hearing, including support documents, and whereas notice as provided by law was given for a public hearing held on February 7, 2019, has been provided, and further appears that the property shown in Exhibit A attached hereto has not been and will not be of any further benefit to the public, and it is in the interest of the public that such said right-of-way be vacated.
Okay, Ms. Tisha, I see you brought the city plat. Did you want to point that out?
Yeah,
a
does
little bit?
everybody know where it is? It's the old, sandbar. Right here off of Highway 98. We've closed a portion of it where the mini mall is. Now we're just closing the other portion of it.
And that's kind of at all of the property from Southeast Fifth Street on up to the Sandbar area, or including that as
Right,
well?
all the way over to the,
Flying Monkeys,
yeah,
okay, antique shop, used to be.
the old school, there's a lot of different, all those buildings sit across the alley right now, so they were all built there.
And that alley, it runs east and west parallel with 98.
And if you'll look, all the other adjacent alleys have been closed across 98 there.
And that, in my opinion, that would open up the opportunity for business there, because you can't have a decent sized business
On a
if you're
50
gonna, you're gonna have an alley running through it. So, that's just my opinion. Yeah. So, if we want to pass this resolution to vacate the alleyway there at that block, we'll need a motion and a second and a vote.
Make a motion to close.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Mathis.
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Allen. Any further discussion? I beg your pardon?
Is this a
Public alleyway, it's
a
owned
public
by,
hearing? Can I
Yes.
speak real quick?
yes, sir. Okay, so that's discussion. Here we go.
Hi, this isn't about this subject, but it's the first public opportunity. The reason I was late is I was talking to Bill Monford on the drive over here, and he wanted me to make a point of congratulating you on the new City Hall and wishing you well.
Oh, okay, thank you. All righty then. Where were we?
Great.
Okay, motion and second, discussion on the vacating the alleyway, east and west. We have a motion by Commissioner Mathis, second by Commissioner Allen. Is there any further discussion? Okay.
I was gonna just say, Miss Linda's here if there's any questions.
Oh,
She's
hi.
got a company
Did you-
requesting it.
I don't know if anybody, Linda Byro with Hicks Snedeker, I represent the development company that's looking at that property.
And what's the name of the company?
Hicks Snedeker, they're a
Okay,
commercial development company out of Daphne, but they work, Alabama, but they work in about 15 different states.
okay.
And we're excited to be in Carrabelle.
So you're taking a look at that property?
Yes, we are.
All right, well, that's very good. We're excited about that as well.
Thank you
And
very
thank
much.
you for being here.
My
We
pleasure.
appreciate it.
It's been very informative.
Okay, we're not done yet. Okay, do y'all have any questions that you would like to ask our guests? Okay, all right then, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then that motion carries. Okay, then, very good, then resolution number 022019.
All right, this is a resolution of the City of Carrabelle establishing a cross-connection control program, whereas the community water system is responsible for supplying its customers with water that meets federal and state drinking water standards, whereas the community water system is responsible for the protection of its water distribution system from contamination or pollution through the backflow of contaminants or pollutants through water service connections. And whereas Rule 62-555.360 Florida Administrative Code requires that each community water system shall establish and implement a cross-connection control program utilizing backflow protection at or for service connections in order to protect the community water system from contamination caused by cross-connections on customers' premises. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Carrabelle, Component 2 in the cross-connection control program plan for the City of Carrabelle dated January 28, 2019 shall establish where backflow protection at or for service connections is mandatory. Component 3 in the cross-connection control program plan for the City of Carrabelle dated January 28, 2019 shall establish requirements regarding ownership, installation, inspection, testing, and maintenance of mandatory backflow protection at or for service connections. And upon the effective date of this resolution, all prior and conflicting resolutions or parts of resolutions establishing a cross-connection control program or parts of a cross-connection control program shall be repealed, rescinded, superseded, and replaced by this resolution. This resolution shall become effective February 7, 2019, passed and adopted, or actually, that's for y'all to consider.
Okay, Now, if there's a question, Mr. Painter is here and he can give us some background on that, and which would include both of these the next one coming up, if you all would like that.
I just have a couple basics.
Okay.
Sure.
Charlie, just for information, I'm assuming this is what you've initiated for a procedural type thing, and this is something that you guys already do?
Yes, this is an update to a plan that we already have. Some of the rules have changed, and we have a DEP inspection coming this summer, and I'm trying to get these things taken care of for that inspection.
But we already do what's in this resolution.
There's a couple of rule change updates to the plan. Yes, we already have a plan in place.
Okay.
Been there for a good many years.
Thank you.
All right. You might stay, we may have a question on the next one.
No, I read them all, that's.
Okay. All right then, thank you. So do we have a motion for resolution 022019?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, and that motion is by Commissioner Millender to approve that resolution. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and that second is by Commissioner Mathis. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. And resolution number 032019.
Okay, this is a resolution of the City of Carrabelle establishing a cross-connection control program for Lanark Village water system. Whereas the community water system is responsible for supplying its customers with water that meets federal and state drinking water standards. Whereas the community water system is responsible for the protection of its water distribution system for contamination or pollution due to backflow of contaminants or pollutants through its water service connections. And whereas Rule 62-555.360 Florida Administrative Code requires that each community water system shall establish and implement a cross-connection control program utilizing backflow protection at or for service connections in order to protect the community water system from contamination caused by cross connections on the customer's premises. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Carrabelle that Component 2 in the cross-connection control program plan for the City of Carrabelle Lanark Village water system dated January 28, 2019 shall establish where backflow protection at or for service connections is mandatory. Component 3 in the cross-connection control program plan for the City of Carrabelle Lanark Village water system dated January 28, 2019 shall establish requirements regarding ownership, installation, inspection, testing, and maintenance of mandatory backflow protection at or for service connections. Upon the effective date of this resolution, all prior and conflicting resolutions or parts of resolutions establishing a cross-connection control program or parts of cross-connection control program shall be repealed, rescinded, superseded, and replaced by this resolution. This resolution shall become effective February 7, 2019.
All right then, do we have any questions on this resolution?
I move to approve.
Okay then, we have that motion by Commissioner Millender. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And that's by Commissioner Mathis again. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, so here we go. Resolution 042019.
All right, this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a change in description to a supplemental joint participation agreement, project number 425610-3, with the Florida Department of Transportation to provide 100% grant funding from a construction parking apron to construct a parking apron, to construct parking apron to mitigate deficiencies, site prep, and survey for fencing and CEI. Whereas the City of Carrabelle needs 100% grant funding to conduct a survey, perform construction inspection in coordination for the security fence project. Whereas the Carrabelle City Commission wishes to take advantage of the generous offer of the Florida Department of Transportation to provide 100% of the funding to make these improvements to the Carrabelle-Thompson Airport. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Carrabelle, Florida, assembled in regular meeting on February 7, 2019, that the mayor be and she is hereby authorized and directed to negotiate and execute a supplemental joint participation agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation, a document necessary to receive funding from the Florida Department of Transportation as follows. The contribution of the Florida Department of Transportation participation is 100% at $215,000. City of Carrabelle participation 0% or $0. Total cost of project $215,000. Be it therefore resolved that a copy of this resolution be attached to the joint participation agreement between the City of Carrabelle and the Florida Department of Transportation when fully executed.
Okay, do we have questions on this one?
Move to approve.
All righty. We have a motion by Commissioner Millender. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and that's by Commissioner Allen, the second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, then, here we go. Ordinance number 469, and this is the first reading, and there'll be no vote on this one.
This is first reading.
Yes.
Okay, great, yeah. Sorry, first reading, ordinance 469, an ordinance of the city of Carrabelle, Florida, providing for the amendment of section 30-2 of Article 1 of the Charter of the city of Carrabelle, Florida, changing the year and month of election for the mayor and city commissioners from September of each odd-numbered year to November of each odd-numbered year, providing for extension of the terms of city commissioners.
Excuse
Good
me?
point. Of sorry, I'll start over again, just so, because this needs to be clear for everyone to understand.
Okay.
Orders of the City of Carrabelle, Florida, providing for the amendment of section 30-2 of Article 1 of the Charter of the City of Carrabelle, Florida, changing the year and month of election for the mayor and city commissioners from September of each odd-numbered year to November of each even-numbered year, providing for extension of the terms of city commissioners in order to make an orderly transition, providing for the repeal of any ordinance or parts therefrom in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And this is, again, we had a number of meetings on this, special meetings on this. This is to bring us in line with the county elections, state elections, federal elections, and the cost savings realized by having the county elections office handle our election process.
All right, is there any discussion on this? Now, we won't vote, but.
It's the first reading, right?
First reading.
But I just want to allow the commission and the public to have discussion and comment. Is there any comment from the public? Okay, then. All right, then we'll have the second reading on this ordinance with a vote next month. Thank you so much. Do we want to take a,
Yes.
oh, they want to take a small recess. So that's what we're going to do for about 5 minutes. Not going to take a picture of y'all, okay? It's our first meeting. Thank you. Yes, all right, we're re-adjourned.
I second the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's time to go, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, we're reconvened here at the Carrabelle City Hall meeting on February 7th, 2019, and we're under old business. And item number 1 is discussion and possible action regarding hiring an advanced wastewater treatment plant operator. We had response. I know we did because I have a copy of the application on my desk here. We had response to the in-house advertisement. Has everyone seen that application, the response to the in-house advertisement for this position? And I'm going to ask Ms. Courtney and Mr. Charlie, the in-house applicant, met the qualifications and license and certifications that are included in the job description for this position?
Yes, he did.
Okie dokie. Then what is the recommendation of the Water and Sewer Department Superintendent and Administrator on this?
The recommendation would be to move Jared Mock to that position.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir. And I would recommend to accept the superintendent's recommendation.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Third, I'll beat you to it,
Okay. Fine. Okay, so Mr. Millender, Commissioner Millender, motions to take that recommendation to promote Mr. Jared Mock into the advanced wastewater treatment plant operator position. Commissioner Walden seconds that. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then that motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Monk.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2, discussion and possible action regarding hiring a water and sewer department laborer. This item was tabled from the January 3rd commission meeting, and understanding the top 4 original applicants have continued to express interest in the position. Is that correct? Okay. Then I'm just going to go ahead and ask, what is the recommendation of the Water and Sewer Department Superintendent and Administrator?
My recommendation will stay the same as last time.
And that was Mr. Jones, is that right? Okay.
Kevin Jones.
Tevin Jones. Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve.
okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to hire Mr. Tevin Jones as a Water and Sewer Department laborer by Commissioner Millender and a second by Commissioner Walden. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. And Mr. Jones, I believe, is with us this evening, and congratulations. Okay, item 3, discussion of possible action regarding Planning and Zoning Board recommendation concerning transmittal letter to the Department of Economic Opportunity for the 2019-1 amendment package to the comprehensive plan. And you all received a copy of that letter. It was some time ago, but we have that. And this is something that Mr. Richard Fetchek came and talked to us about from the ARPC. Do you have any further questions on this? The letter states that we will have identified amendments that will be necessary to the comp plan, and those amendments will be submitted to the DEO within the next year.
Somehow I thought we'd already done that, but this is follow-up from Richard Fetchek.
Yes, sir. And they did this at what they recommended to P&Z.
They recommend approval.
To approve.
Okay. All right, then.
And it's a step process, so we're just following, he sends it to us, and we just keep following his lead.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to send the letter of determination regarding the comp plan to the DEO by Commissioner Mathis, second by Commissioner Millender. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that motion carries, and probably send a copy of that correspondence to Mr. Fetchek and that Caroline Smith. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Item 4, discussion and possible action regarding Planning and Zoning Board recommendation concerning allowable use in industrial zoning to include dry boat storage and RV storage. And what was the P&Z's recommendation on this?
They made a motion to go ahead and approve. It was where they were looking at the industrial zoning and also the commercial zoning. So what they decided to do is go ahead and split it out and approve the industrial and keep working on the commercial.
And this is our industrial in the gray here. That's the only,
And what is that, about 15 acres?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, is that as,
17, I believe.
Oh, 17?
did they make a motion to, or was planning and zoning in favor of going forward as a primary use or
A primary use in the industrial
in
zoning.
the industrial use,
So,
not by special exception?
No.
all right, so that means then if someone applies for dry boat or RV storage to have that as a business in the industrial zone area, they can do that. Ms. Keisha would just go ahead and allow that business license to be purchased, and they wouldn't have to come to us or the P&Z first.
Would somebody with history, maybe Keisha was here, wasn't that primarily set up for when the cement plant was put over there, Keisha?
that and the hex support, and it's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah,
there was a,
there were some anticipated uses, yes.
because the cement plant's not in the city limits.
Yes, in the county, yeah, but it's still an industrial zone.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And we own all the industrial zone.
We own it all.
Yeah,
So this would just add as a permissible use RV boat storage to
Right.
all the other ones that are already permissible.
All the gray on the north of the airstrip has been rezoned.
Okay, so it's the pleasure of the board to accept or not the recommendations of the planning and zoning to allow dry boat storage and RV storage in the industrial zone.
I move to approve.
Okay, we have that motion by Commissioner Allen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Mathis.
I would just like to say that that will have to be changed by ordinance, so you're approving it tonight, it's not approve it, it's not final. It will have to come back by an ordinance, so 2 more readings.
Well, and there was working on some commercial areas too, so, that would change the LDR by ordinance, so we'll just put it all in one.
Okay, and then I wanted to ask, I had that as a question, so they're working on the commercial. But once I started looking at this, I noticed that the marine part of the table does not include sale and rental of fishing equipment and fishing poles and bait and such as that. So is that, are they looking at that?
They are, not just,
C1.
right, not just boat stores, they've actually taken the list and said, this would need special exception, or this would be allowable, and, you know.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, so we have a motion to accept their recommendation and move forward then with an ordinance regarding allowing permissible use of dry boat storage and RV storage in the industrial zoning. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, then that motion carries. Oh, did you have discussion, sir?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
sorry.
didn't bring the chance.
Oh, all right, well, go ahead and have discussion.
Yes.
Then we might
I was
revote.
just,
Yeah,
was that including the building that I'm in?
that would include your building. It's in the industrial
All
building.
right.
It's in the industrial zone. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, like, I'm in there and I'm paying the utilities and all that.
Mhm.
And, we have a very high demand on boat and RV storage right now, due to a storm that we had. So, yeah.
No,
Well,
it
since
wouldn't,
you-
it wouldn't
since
be
you are-
allowable until the ordinance is passed.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know, since you already voted in favor, so.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so, and you have, do you have a waiting list? For
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
for the people want to, right now, you're not storing boats there, you're
I'm
working on
not
boats.
I'm not storing boats in there, I'm not storing RVs, but, I do have some people that are waiting to put in there.
If they could.
And, yeah,
And you actually build boats there,
I do build boats in there.
construct boats, yes.
Well, I have one boat that I'm building, yeah. And I have several boats in there that I'm repairing right now. I have like, one big sailboat in the lot that is like, Chris Mitchum's boat,
Mhm.
you know, he spoke for me, like,
Yes.
one of the meetings.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yeah, everything's like coming in play now.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we'll have to have an ordinance on this, and that takes 2 readings before we can move forward with that type storage in the industrial zone.
And I can
I
say,
wanna make note that like, whenever like somebody's gonna store an RV in there, there's gonna be no way that they're gonna be able to stay in their RV when the RV is stored in there.
Okay.
It's dry storage, period.
Mhm.
It's not gonna be an RV park.
All right, well, that's,
Make that clear.
okay, thank you.
All right,
Mr. Hartman?
yes, at P and Z, the reason this issue of industrial was separated from the commercial was so that it could move forward, I think, on a separate track. I know Keisha was talking about, we did talk about trying to do it all at one time, but the revamping commercial C1 and 2, that's a little more complicated and probably take longer. And just adding this to the chart as a permissible use, and then anywhere else in the text is just a simple, you would do that by ordinance, first read, second read. So that can be a very simple ordinance.
So we could move forward with this portion of it by ordinance next month?
Yes, the way I recall, the reason at P and Z we took this as a separate,
Okay.
brought it to you separately,
All
so
right.
it could move forward, so it wasn't hung up in the longer process of dealing with
In
all
the
the rest of the
commercial
commercial in the
district.
city.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Because obviously that's a lot more complicated. This is just a discrete area, industrial, that's uncontroversial. The rest of it may be more dicey.
All right, well, thank you. Is there any questions to Mr. Martin Benford? All All right,
All right,
thank you,
thank
sir.
you very
Please
much.
excuse me for moving through that discussion and vote so fast. We're glad you're here, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 5, discussion of possible action regarding the amended lease request from Little Custom Homes. We met with there's a handful of them here now, Little Custom Homes representatives, and Courtney and Mr. Hartman and myself met with them briefly just before the meeting. And they have actually, I'll let Mr. Hartman review the amendment request changes.
All right. What we've done is we've exchanged back and forth lease provisions, and we're down to just a handful that the commission needs to make a decision on, and that'll decide, and the folks from Little Custom Homes will speak for themselves in a minute, and answer questions, but we're down to just a couple items that need commission decision to decide whether we're moving ahead in a lease situation or not. And basically what we are offering to lease that building, the terms upon which we're offering to lease the building. Just to bring you back up to speed, the terms that we have recommended, basically, that we've submitted to them, that the committee deemed acceptable, that we're not arguing over anymore, we've kind of arrived at. And obviously the commission can change anything it wants, but just to bring you back up to speed, we have a 4-year lease. Year 1, $3,500 a month. Year 2, $3,500 a month. Year 3, $4,500 a month. Year 4, $4,500 a month. And the lease would begin April 15, 2019. The terms that we're still going back and forth on, that we need the commission to decide on, are, we've talked about a ramp-up period. So a rent abatement period during the first year, basically months that they would not pay rent, so that they can get in and get up to speed. We started off at 3 months. They had asked for a year. We moved up to 4 months, and that's where it stands now. And they have indicated that they could do, and I'll let them speak for themselves, but this is my understanding, that they could do 6 months as long as they had a 60-day early termination option during that first year. And talking about that, what we had provided originally was a 120-day early termination, that they could provide us with 120 days notice, and they could move out during any time during that 4-year lease period. So if they're struggling or the economy turns on them, whatever reason, they can give us 120 days. They still have to pay during that 120 days, but then they could leave, and amicably. That stayed in, and that would apply during the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year. But what they asked for was a early term, even shorter termination period during the first year. And that's when I talk about this 60-day, that would only apply during the first year of the lease. They're asking for a 6-month ramp-up period, so no payments for 6 months, and then they would start paying on the 7th month. But they would also, at any time during that first year, be able to give us 60 days notice and move out during the first year. We talked about also a security deposit. We had asked for $15,000 security deposit. They've indicated that they would be willing to put up approximately $9,000 security deposit. And that's it. So those are the terms that are still, call it in flux, and Mr. Sal Gaglio and Mr. Kane are here to obviously flesh out answer any questions. But those are the remaining terms so that we can reach agreement here tonight on. All the rest of the terms are consistent from the prior leases that we've looked at. Sure, certainly ask me any questions first, so we can get off to the right start.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, please do.
Dan, what protection from day one do we have against damages if
if they decide to leave during that first 6 months with a 60-day notice, or if they decide to leave from the second year to the fourth year with a 120-day notice, what guarantee are we gonna have in this contract that we're not gonna be left with damages?
Security deposit. So that's the
Yeah,
$9,000,
that's the $9,000.
$9,000 to $15,000 that we're,
That's the only guarantee we have.
it's the only guarantee we have.
Now, I will say, and I reminded Mr. Hartman of it after our meeting, that we had damages on from our last tenant. And we decided through the citizens' request that we hired an outside legal opinion on whether or not we could go across state lines and try to seek the equipment. And that was $5,000, one-time attorney consultant fee, just for that, not to repair anything. So I'm just letting you all.
My question,
Mhm.
I was here when that was happening.
Mhm. Were you on board, sir, or, I can't remember. Okay. So, the way they've changed their request from 12 months to 6 months, ramp-up period, no rent. We originally asked for $4,000 a month for the first year, and they're requesting $3,500, or for the second year. And for the third year, we originally requested $4,500, and they are requesting $4,000 monthly. The fourth year, they're requesting to pay $4,500 monthly. And then to extend the term, they would have the option to extend for an additional 3 years at $5,000 a month. Now, I know that we did ask for some information. We all agreed that we would ask for information from the applicants to provide us where we could do a background credit check and a tenant screening report. And we haven't received that. And we did receive a personal financial statement from Mr. Justin Massimo, or Dennis Massimo. I may not be pronouncing that right. And I'm not a professional, but to me, the financial statement appears to be on a template, just a template that may have been secured offline. I cannot see any indication of where it was prepared by a CPA or an accounting firm. So it's, it's hard for me to, understand the facts on that financial statement. And this is, I guess you're offering this financial statement as credit or justification that you're going to be able to afford this building?
Well, let me start out by saying thank you for welcoming me here. We're pretty excited about coming here to Carrabelle to try and get this business started. Courtney had requested a personal financial statement. We sent a personal financial statement. It was requested that you folks wanted to know what was involved. And so we provided the information that was requested.
Courtney, you never asked them for their social security number? So
Yes, we have.
I don't have that request. I don't have that request.
That was probably before December.
It might be. I mean, I got involved, we got involved from, our group got involved with Bill Joe in December. So we were provided that information. I spoke to Dan Hartman, and he mentioned something about a personal financial statement. I don't recall, I personally didn't receive anything about a request for social security numbers. But I think I recommended also at that time that we put up a security deposit, but I think I mentioned 2 months, which is pretty standard. I mean, I know most folks here have been in business. 2 months is a fairly standard type of security deposit. Our goal here is to try and establish ourselves here in Carrabelle, to produce a quality home for affordable home for people. We're not looking to build $300,000 houses. We're looking to build houses for folks who can afford, anywhere from $600 to $1,000 a month. We expect to employ anywhere from 40 to 55 people. But it's an investment, and it's a risk, and we are going to be making an investment here. And we just want to make sure that we're going to be able to have the time and the ability to turn around and move forward and get what we need to have done. I don't know what happened in the previous situation, and I'm sorry that happened to you. But that's, I don't want to be held accountable for something somebody else did. As the leases that we have now, we're pretty too much security. That's basically the operating model. With regard to the, we'll call it escape clause, it's basically an opportunity for us to spend, we hope for a year. And we hope for a year because we figured it was going to take 8 to 9 months to really figure out, is there a market here, is there demand here? And in coming back to 4 and a 4-month notice, we found that a little bit difficult to work with, and we really see that as a debate. And so we proposed 6 months, and we were willing to go back from 30 days to 60 days if we could get 60 days. But you know, we're pretty excited about coming in here. We think we can do a lot of good things. We've taken our homes pretty far along the line. We're gold certified for life insurance purposes. Everything is hurricane 160 mile an hour proof with impact windows is where we're moving towards. We're being asked to do a 30 home development in the city of Mobile's historic district right now, and so we'll be probably moving to 9-foot ceilings. These are good quality homes. They are built to site-built standards, so they are not HUD standards. Okay, they are held at a much higher standard. We are provide all the some pretty nice amenities from stainless steel appliances to butcher block counters, that sort of thing. So we're hopeful that we can get something started here. I'm sorry if we missed the notice about the Social Security. Frankly, I didn't know that. Might have been.
Okay, we appreciate you coming on a short notice to speak with us and answer our questions. Commissioner Allen has a question.
What do you consider your market area?
Well,
how far away from here and all?
Once we're at a modular state, we figure about 100 miles radius is what we'd like to work on. Right now, we're working at a 50-mile radius around Mobile, but we figure about 100 to 120 miles would be our primary radius. We have our primary designs right now are basically built in the factory and then secured on a permanent basis at the site. The entire home is built there. By going to a slightly modular format, where it being several components, we feel that we can get a greater distance, greater radius. Obviously, we're concerned about bridges, et cetera, and transport. We work with the local police, will give us coverage when we need to, and so we're very much by the book, very much by the regulations. I've been carrying blocks when my grandfather was a mason, when I was 13 years old, and I'm going to be 61. So I have some construction experience. My partners here, Justin Massimo and John Coyle, Bill Joe Den, you've met before. We've all got some experience in this. One of the things that we also look to in the future is when we're not building for other people, possibly building some rentals so that we can provide that to the community. That's been one of the goals of our firm since day one, which is to basically provide affordable housing without government subsidies. Okay, and working up north, it's been a win-win situation for all. It's trying to get the lots back on the tax rolls. We provide affordable housing, and we provide jobs. And I think what we're asking for is not too out of the ordinary.
Now, how many, you quoted a number of jobs that you were expecting to employ here in the area.
Somewhere between 40 and 60, depending on how quickly we move and how well business takes off. Our facility in Mobile right now will probably top out around 45 for one shift. If things really get going and we have to add another shift, there'll be additional jobs. But one shift should get us approximately 20 to 25 houses a month.
It's an operational thing that I have concerns about. not because of someone else, but because of protecting ourselves monetarily. Definitely have an interest in creating progress here in our community. There's no doubt about that, I think. You've looked at that building, correct?
Mm-hmm.
On the inside of that building, do you anticipate or plan any modifications or changes to that building?
Well, I know that some of the work that was done inside was done without permits, from what I understand. And she brought me around, she was good enough to show me around, and it was very helpful. We might modify some of that, so we have to talk about what it looks like and work with the town to turn around and make modifications there. There are no windows at it. Our goal was to hopefully put a small showroom in there with a glass window so people can see what's going on in the factory. It's sort of an educational tool. One of the modifications that we may need to make is make one of the doors a little bit larger so we can actually pull a house out of there. So we would do that at our own cost. I think that's one of the things we talked about and has been discussed before. Otherwise, I don't see any other major modifications.
Any installation of major equipment? Overhead cranes?
No, we had talked about overhead cranes, we considered it, we were looking into it, and at this time, I don't see any need for it. It's a fairly straightforward operation. Right now, the way we're building them is, instead of using an assembly line process, what we've done is we've created a scenario where each one is built in the bay, similar to the way you build an airplane. And then the different materials would come to that based on what stage you're at. So a team would go to that and work on it until it's finished. The way the facility is designed, we would back the houses in or start back and move the house forward at probably a diagonal full amount when they were done. Once we go modular, and it's a component scenario, we'll produce floors in one bay, and roofs in another bay, and walls in another bay, et cetera, so that they would all come together as they're pulled out. And they'll all be coded with either barcodes or QR codes, so we'll know where everything is and be able to pull things out as it needs to be loaded on the truck. We're using some of the latest technology for tracking materials and supplies and putting it together. We are working with a very well-known engineer firm in Jacksonville, Florida called Apex Technology. They do all the designs for DR Portland and a variety of other large builders. And they're working with us to design the modular format on this. We are building these on the basis that you can put them on several different types of foundations, because we all know the soil conditions are different here depending on where you are. Our standard foundation that we provide with the house is a basic foundation, which is a perimeter footing with stem walls on either side and then columns in the center to create airflow. We have houses in Gulf Shores and Dolphin Islands going up on pilings at an added cost, but we also provide that capability, or we outsource professionals for that specifically. I hope I hit all the high points there.
Well, yes. I wish you all the success in the world of you explaining your business. My concern is for you to have a good business and for us to have protection and growth in this, positive growth in this community. And Dan, I know I'm jumping around here, but let me go back to you on the question.
Sure.
There's escape clauses as a term he used for them. We have an escape clause in this agreement as well, if I'm understanding it correct.
Actually, no, meaning we are obligating, if they're paying their lease, we cannot terminate it. Meaning if they're making their payments, they've got possession of the premises.
Okay, well, my question is if they're making their payments though, and if they're in violation of other issues, we don't have an escape?
We have an eviction. I mean, as the landlord, we always have the right, if they're in breach of the lease agreement, there's provisions where we would give them notice, they would have an opportunity to cure it. If they don't, then we would declare them breach of lease and evict.
We would welcome you to come out often and take a look and see what's going on.
Well, I would hope that's
we
going to
want public participation. We want everybody involved. We want everybody to see what's going on. We're going to be hiring people from the area. I know how small communities work. I lived in a small community for some time myself, so we're here to answer any questions and be available to you.
The lease agreement does provide for inspection by the city administrator.
Yes.
And the lease agreement says that no altercations can be made to the building, like windows or door enlargement, without engineered plans that's accepted and reviewed by our engineering contract and accepted by the administrator and his board. So I wanted to ask then, you talk about, you set the homes on a foundation, stem wall, pilings, and so you hire outside contractors to do that.
We hire outside contractors for piling. We put our own foundations in. If it's a standard foundation, okay, we'll send a crew out that specifically does that, sets it for it.
And so you would have employees that are trained that
Correct.
can lay
correct.
that
We
concrete.
hire some of the local employees who understand masonry.
Uh-huh. And then, but then in our discussion, one of the things that you said earlier today was that the key to all of this, to make it fall into place for you, is to get developers to come on board. So what do you mean?
Well, key for it is to make lots of sales. Okay? What we have in Mobile is we're fortunate enough to have 4 or 5 different developers who provide us with orders of 2 units a month. So we have a 10-unit a month base working for sales. So our goal is to try and find other developers here that want to develop their properties. And I've seen a lot of lots here, and a lot of property here. And us provide them at a discount. We provide discounts to people who buy in bulk, and provide them with houses every month so they can keep, offering them out to the community. The other group that would be really good was, we have some developers who actually are in the business of buying these units just for rentals, because they can buy them so inexpensively. They can buy a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house for under $60,000. They make great rentals. You can get good rent from that, and that's really part of the basis. One of the things is that we've considered that when things are slow, that we might actually do some rentals, so that we keep the staff going, keep our people employed, keep them working. And that's really important. When you hire good people, we want to stick with them. I want to also make clear that we're not looking to hire people for $8 an hour. Okay, we'll pay very good wages for the right people to come and work in our factories.
Okay, so then talk to us about your price per square foot, your average price per square foot, and that's average size of your homes that you're proposing.
The average price per square foot is running between $85 and $100 a square foot. That's set, done. Okay, that does not include the land. We give discounts to developers, but we provide a quality homes. You get all your appliances. You get stainless steel refrigerator, dishwasher, microwave, stove, and a stacking washer and dryer with that. I mean, so where you're providing wood ceilings, stained wood ceilings, and beadboard inside. Again, impact windows. These things kind of add up after a while, but we feel that we can provide a quality product like that, and we can provide it at a reasonable price. One of the things that we've worked very hard on is developing rapport with the banks. We have a rapport with Supreme Lending, and Supreme, we're not considered a manufacturer modular home. We're considered a site-built home because we build to local standards. We do not build to HUD standards. So what they are able to give us is 30-year mortgages under FHA. So we can provide 100% financing to people, okay, on a 30-year mortgage, which is going to be cheaper than their rent in most cases. So as long as they've got a credit score and can qualify for it, we have great opportunity. I had a wonderful meeting this afternoon with the banks here as well. So when we talk about price per square foot, I kind of like to look at the price of houses these days like you're selling a car. How much do you want to pay a month? I don't rarely be walking to a car dealer anymore and they say, how much do you want to, buy the car for? It's how much do you want to pay a month? So we feel that if we can get some people in there and get them in at a reasonable price. The other thing that we try and pride ourselves on is that we've had this luck in Alabama, is that people will buy a lot for $20,000 and they'll put a $100,000 home on it, and it'll get appraised for $120,000, $130,000. So they'll walk out of there with equity from day one. That's something we really try and do for people as well. So I mean, we're here to help build communities. That's what we do. This whole project got started because my partner Justin was determined to provide affordable housing in the town that's not far from us, up in New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey. Now, like many small towns and older towns, there are a lot of empty lots because people walk away, they get closed on, they walk away from their taxes. In the city of Trenton, 50% of the lots are owned by the city. So the idea was you can't really provide affordable housing in a city like that unless you got government subsidies. So what we did was to come up with a way to actually do that by getting the lots from the city and building affordable housing and doing it in a way that's, now people pay market rates for an actual energy efficient home. It's another thing we pride ourselves on. So.
Well, have you conducted a market analysis of this area to see exactly?
Not a full-blown market analysis. What we've done is we've looked at what prices of homes are. We've looked at the demand here. We looked at the number of lots here. We've spoken to a variety of different local people, real estate agents, realtors. We've spoken to the folks at HUD. We've spoken to FEMA. We've spoken to a variety of people. And everyone tells us that there's a demand. So, which is why we're willing to take the risk to make the move. But we don't have a formal marketing study.
And then a business plan, I guess it's just verbal, just what you have told you.
Yeah, our business plan involves not just Carrabelle. It involves Mobile, it involves New Jersey also. So it's a much grander. Any other questions?
I don't have questions at this moment. I know they've got quite a few folks on their team. I noticed that you've got business, there's a business called Little Custom Homes Florida LLC and Little Custom Homes Carrabelle Florida LLC. Who's what?
So if you want, I can speak to this and answer some of your earlier questions if you don't mind.
Okay.
My name's Dennis Massimo. You spoke about me earlier.
Yes.
My middle name's Justin. That's what everybody calls me. So if there's any confusion with that, I apologize.
Massimo.
Yes, Massimo. I would be more than happy to provide my Social Security for a credit check. I'm one of the partners in the business. Really, the first LLC that was formed in conjunction with this lease was Little Custom Homes Carrabelle. But since that discussion began, our partnership has invested in Little Custom Homes as part of what Sal was talking about, which is a more national plan to execute on this business. And so we formed a new LLC in partnership with Bill Joe, who's the original founder of the company, who's still a partner in the business and who originally was part of the presentation to you. So the LLC that we formed is called Little Custom Homes Florida LLC, and that's what you see reflected on the lease that we sent to Mr. Hartman. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have as well. Like Sal said, my dream in my entire life was to try, that was inspired by the community that I grew up in central New Jersey, was to provide around the country, along with Trenton, where I grew up, affordable homes without government subsidy, high quality, energy efficient, workforce housing, places that, the average citizen of a community like this and where I come from can afford to either pay the rent or make their mortgage payment without having to lean on grants and subsidies from the government. And so I met Bill 3 years ago and learned about his operation. And so we've brought in, the reason this has taken so long is we've brought in a team to make sure a manufacturing and construction expert, a real estate development expert, other investors and financial experts to really make sure that this is done the right way, and to support Bill and his effort with Little Custom Homes. So that, I hope that, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Well, it does seem like you're spread out from Arkansas to New Jersey to St. Petersburg to Mobile, Carrabelle. and this new gentleman that you introduced earlier, Mr. John Coyle, where is he from?
John's born originally in New Orleans. So we have a nationwide team here. It's really, we believe in the community of Carrabelle. Like you asked about a market study, we've done significant research. We haven't commissioned a market study, but we've been holding discussions with all of the local real estate professionals that we can. Obviously, there's tremendous demand related to the terrible, impact that Hurricane Michael had as well. But I know that there's growth right now in the area, and we're looking to help people who are looking for a home, a high-quality home, to be able to find one here locally. And obviously to create local jobs like Sal had mentioned. And it's not our intention to, the timelines that we're suggesting, changing it to a year and now talking about 6 months and the security deposit, it's not, I know like you said, the city needs to make sure it protects its interests, and I completely understand that. It's just to make sure as we're ramping up this business, that we are, when we're making the investment, that we can make sure that we can follow through on the promises that we made you before we're all locked into something that doesn't work for everyone. So it's our goal to make sure that we can go about this at the right speed and not rush it, to make sure, and that we have the time to do that, to make sure that we're successful and you don't end up with a tenant that leaves halfway through the lease.
Well, yeah, and from my standpoint as commissioner, and what I'm about to say, I don't mean it sarcastically.
Sure.
But if your business succeeds, that's entirely up to you.
Yes.
Where I'm sitting here, I need to make sure that the citizens of Carrabelle and our interests are protected. And I want you to succeed. As I've said already, I'd like to see this thing move positively forward. But we just need to make sure that we are protected here as long as your business, as you do, make sure your business is positively productive too.
Absolutely, and sorry, excuse me.
I'd like to say from my standpoint, from what I'm hearing, and just make these comments and I'll let it go. They've offered to give information to our city administrator now that she's been trying to seek and has not been able to get. And our attorney assures me that we are protected. And the committee is satisfied with the deposit. I'd like to see us try to move forward. I want to feel sure of those items before I go forward. But when the attorney says that we are protected, we can handle our interest as well as these folks can handle their interest, I'd like to give them the opportunity to come in and succeed, and wish them all the luck in the world, and hope we can help you succeed, which would improve our small community here in many different ways if you're successful.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to see us to do that if we're on board, and like you said, not jump into it, but let's move slow, make sure all of our ducks are lined up, and you're good on your side, we're good on our side. And so I'd like to see us go forward with it with the attorney's approval on our lease agreement.
And what is, obviously the commission, we have this, however many pages, 20-page lease agreement, but we have been through that a number of times.
We have.
And what the committee, Courtney, myself, and the mayor, was unable to, I would say, just agree on with the Little Custom Homes folks, and really wanted to put it in collectively the commission's lap to decide. And we can just we can go through these one at a time. And I don't want to act like either that, whether it's monthly rent or anything else, that's still, if someone has an issue with that, they can bring it up. But the committee was able to get comfortable with those items. But the ones we were, again, wanting to put in the commission as a whole's lap were rent abatement. So right now, where we are is 4 months versus 6 months of rent abatement. Meaning the committee said, hey, we're comfortable with 4. The Little Custom Homes folks came back and said, hey, we can go down to 6 as long as we have this 60-day out during the first year. But let's even leave the 60-day out aside for a minute and just deal with it simple as 4 months versus 6 months. What does the commission think of that? As
far as a ramp-up period. So this is during the first year, the number of months they don't have to pay rent, so they can get their wheels under them and get
I'll give you my opinion. I'm good with that if they'll increase that deposit to 12 instead of 9.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I feel. Now, when we left out of there, I thought their offer was firm on the deposit at 7,000, and then you mentioned 9, so I'm a little bit.
I think what I had mentioned, and I'm sorry if there was confusion, was 2 months. So
So
the
2
last 2 months were $4,500 a month, we were at 9,000.
Okay, the last 2 months, okay. But I'm not satisfied with the deposit, because I know how that money can, if there's an
That's
issue,
true.
at 9,000, I'm not.
So
satisfied.
if you don't mind me answering, I think we would be willing to do that. What I'm here to do tonight is to find a compromise so that we can move forward and get into business and satisfy everyone on the
Okay,
board.
we got 4 other commissioners here, that's just my opinion.
Sure.
And mine as well, on the,
So what's up for consideration is a 6-month ramp-up period with a $12,000 deposit.
and then 60-day notice to.
60-day notice.
In the first year.
During the first year.
Mhm.
And I think we would be willing to, if that would satisfy the board, we would be willing to make that compromise.
Frank, you've been here before.
Yes.
Sounds good to me. I believe we're pretty well protected and covered there, and
Okay, we would need to, really before we need to move forward is to, I think, is to get the information from these folks that we had yes.
To
Courtney.
That's correct. And
So-
he said he's willing to do that.
So, I'm not familiar with your procedure, but hopefully you can help me through this. I'd be willing, just because it is hard for me to travel to these meetings, I would be willing to make it a condition of your vote that you guys are satisfied with the information we provide you, and that if you need additional information, that I'd be happy to provide it in a very timely manner. I can provide my business card with my cell phone number and my email address, and all of that, I'll provide, and the social security number, and I can do that immediately.
To our city administrator.
Absolutely, sir.
One of the things we'd like to do is try and come to a conclusion on this, because we do want to get started, and if we have to put it off again, we're going to have to put the start date off again, because it's going to take a little time to ramp up. So if that's okay as a contingency and you guys are comfortable with that, we'd like to.
And I'm happy to make that a condition of whatever.
And
you
what
vote
is
on.
the square footage now that you are going to be, that you're wanting to use there?
And this is I revised that because of the expanded area that we had given lease to Mr. Van Baruch. And I estimated as 56,000, but it's essentially the rest of the building. That's my understanding. Mr. Van Baruch has 6,000 square feet or 7, is it 6? Is it 6,000? Well, but we can, I say approximately 56,000 square feet, assuming the building is 63,000 square feet. 61, okay. So that's on us. We'll figure that out and put it in.
And that lease covers the liability of $1 million?
Yeah, it says the insurance requirement of $1 million.
We're happy to provide that as a condition of the approval as well.
And that's in the lease. So and again, from old problems, just so everybody's comfortable, is it also states that the lease cannot be used as collateral for a loan. So that's where we got tangled up for one of our prior.
And it cannot be sublet.
Without approval. Right.
We understand.
To move forward, it would be basically a motion to approve the lease with these terms as adjusted, which is 6-month ramp up, $12,000 deposit, 60-day termination during the first year. Otherwise, again, the lease is drafted, conditional upon providing
financial information to Courtney and that information be acceptable, you would authorize the mayor or Courtney or the mayor to execute the lease on behalf of the city. So it would not have to come back before the commission.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Millender and a second by Commissioner Mathis to move forward with this lease proposal with Custom Homes. Discussion. Now, is this going to be contingent on the information that we've asked to receive from? Okay.
Yes. That's what.
Okay.
We'll provide you everything that you need. I'll appreciate it if you can get a quick turnaround on it. Because, just want to make sure the clock doesn't run on us.
Well, if there's a snafu with the administrator, then we may have a holdup, but additionally with her.
I understand, and I'm happy to provide
And the attorney.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to provide the information timely.
And also the mayor, she's a part of it. So
Absolutely.
Now, the lease also discussed that there is another tenant in that building and that they are supposed to work out any uses of common areas, parking lot and restroom. Are they supposed to negotiate that between themselves or we?
Yeah, actually, I mean, what I would suggest, put Courtney in the middle of it, but is we're just gonna assume that the financial stuff all works out here quickly in the next day or two. But then during this period between now and April 15th, that Courtney coordinate and everybody work together. Mr. Baruch and they work together to figure out logistics.
And I'm happy to introduce myself this evening, work directly with him to execute on that in a timely manner.
And coordinated with
And with Courtney as well.
And the utilities now are in Mr. Martin Ben Baruch's name. Yes, sir, would you like to speak for a moment or?
Yeah, so it's in my name.
Your water and your water, sewer
Water and
and
power,
power are in his name at this point. And how would they proceed with that?
Honestly, I think we should have them talk it out, and if they can't figure it out, then we'll deal with it. I mean, the city will
So that's between them.
make that between them for now, but obviously if there's some sort of, we're the parent here, I guess, we're the landlord, so that could ultimately come back to us to deal with, but I'd say we let them try to sort it out first.
And again, I'm happy to do that, whether it's some sort of sub-metering or to figure out who's responsible or prorating. I'm happy, Mr. Baruch, is that correct, sir?
Close.
Your last name, I'm sorry.
Baruch, sorry.
I'm gonna butcher it, I apologize.
Martin.
Martin, Justin, pleasure to meet you, but I'm happy to work it out with you, whether it's sub-metering or some prorating.
Build a wall.
Thank you for waking us up here.
We currently, in one of our facilities, share space with somebody else as well, and so we've been through this before, and where it's usually, whatever's fair is what we decide on, and we've never had any problems being fair, so.
Okay. All right then. We've got you on video.
I'm here. I'm here to be recorded.
Okay, so we have that, then this motion to move forward contingent upon the credit background tenant screening information that we received. Motion by Mr. Millender, Commissioner Millender, and second by Commissioner Mathis. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then that motion carries.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's item number 5.
Oh, sure. You got a business card?
Oh, my,
This is my
okay,
investment company, but I can give you all the info for
all right.
Yep, the email.
Okay, gentlemen,
Yep, no problem.
we're gonna move forward now with new business. All right? Okay, David says it's all right. Item 1, new business. Discussion of possible action regarding advertising for a water and sewer department labor. So we have, okay, should we take a brief moment here?
No.
Okay, good night, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And have a safe trip back.
Thank you.
Leave me one of your cards on the front desk.
I left it.
Okay, thank you. All right, bye-bye. Okay, we've promoted Mr. Jarrett to Advanced Wastewater Treatment Plant Operator, and we've hired Mr. Jones in Mr. Jarrett's place to replace him. And we still have an opening at the Water and Sewer Department, and we are requesting from the Water and Sewer Department to advertise in-house, is that right, for the first week? And then if that doesn't work out, if there's no suitable applicants, then we would advertise in the newspaper for 2 weeks and possibly have, well, we wouldn't be able to deal with it next month, I don't think, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, I move that we advertise.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. We have that motion by Commissioner Allen and a second by Commissioner Mathis. Is there discussion? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then that motion carries. Okay, so discussion of possible action regarding Camp Gordon Johnston's request to close Highway 98 to conduct their annual parade on March 9th.
Make the motion to
Second.
Okay, and that motion to approve is by Commissioner Millender, second by Commissioner Allen. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, back to some serious items. Discussion of possible action regarding the bid award for Keogh's Road and drainage improvement. I didn't get a chance to speak to Russell about this. Now, he did earlier recommend Dixie paving.
Yes, ma'am. I jumped the gun on that a little.
That's all right.
For that project, we received 5 bids. The low bidder was Dixie at $356,508. And we would recommend approval of that bid.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
I looked back on some paperwork, and it looks like the project amount is like about $410,000 for 400.
Yes.
819. And
Yes.
Then, and then the grant match, local required grant match is $59,000 for two specified items.
Correct, yes.
So it seems like that's going to leave a surplus.
There's a portion of that bid that the department cannot pay for. And that was itemized in the bid it's the utility work.
Okay.
The utility work, the Department of Transportation cannot pay for that work.
Mhm.
That amounts to about $13,000.
Uh-huh.
So the city would be responsible for that portion of the construction amount. So that leaves.
But now, if the DOT can't pay for that 13,000, or is
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm trying to figure out how to.
That's correct. There is a surplus, and the grant amount would cover the cost of construction.
But the 351,000 grant amount is 351, is that the grant?
That's right.
amount?
Yes,
Out of that, we cannot fund the 13,000 on
that's correct.
on the utility work. So for the city, it's, the grant match then is 59,468, basically 60,000, plus then the additional 13,000.
Yes, some of that was in-kind costs for design, permitting, construction administration. So some of those dollars have already been expended as a match.
Okay, I'd just like to know, exactly how much we're spending. Now, we have, Miranda and I have worked over the years, we've been working on this since September or summer of 2014.
I have a question, please.
Yes, sir.
Make sure I'm on track.
Okay,
The grant amount's $351.
yes, sir. Mhm.
In addition, the city's amount is $60,000
Mhm.
plus the $13,000.
Yes,
So that would make a total project cost of over $400,000.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes, and that's reflected in the agreement between the city and the department.
And the
For-
bids that we've received is for the entire project.
Yes,
So,
the construction.
minus the utility work. Minus the utility and the local.
Well,
okay, minus the
The-
utility, which is $13,000.
Yes, and the utility work is included in the bid amount.
Okay, that's what I was asking. The utility work is
This much
included.
is covered, and that would be the utility total bill.
Right. So the total bid is $356,000. The utility amount of that bid is $13,000. So the remaining is $343,000.
That would be, the 343 would be funded by the grant money?
Yes, 100% covered by the grant.
Okay, so then would that leave a surplus in the grant money?
It would.
Okay,
Of about $7,000.
Yeah.
That's a little over.
That's right.
okay. Now, if we had a change order or something, they run across, and if DOT approved that change order, it could be
The
funded
grant
out?
amount will cover it, yes.
Okay. All right, and then the city's gonna be responsible for basically 73,000,
Yes.
somewhere around in there,
Yes.
or maybe a little less, since some work has been done already.
Right.
Okay.
It would be less.
And that would be funded out of our log account. We have been
Yeah, local.
hoarding money for the log account for this, exactly right here. And we do have money for that.
Russell, when you chose the recommended contractor, did you do that strictly from monetary purposes?
I wouldn't say strictly. There's other requirements of the bid, insurance requirements. They have to provide 3 projects similar in nature that they've successfully completed. There's other information of that nature, so not strictly related to cost, but they did provide all that information. So.
And Dixie has bid on several of our projects that we've had going on in the past
Yeah.
few years.
But are you familiar with them?
I am familiar with Dixie. Yes, I am. In fact, the current owner of Dixie was a former employee of Inovia, so I know it.
Oh.
I know.
Now you're an attorney.
Well,
Divulge it too much.
I trained him well. I trained him.
And Dixie did, they were always overbidding, and they weren't the low bidder on all the projects, except one project, our crosswalk, our 4th Street crosswalk. And they did do that in early 17, and it was very good. They did a good job. They came, set up, was professional, got the job done, and got out of there.
Well, I make a motion that we accept Mr. Large's recommendation
Second.
for the PO project.
Okay, we have that motion by Mr. Millender to accept the recommendation of Dixie Paving, and that's seconded by Commissioner Allen. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then that motion carries. Okay, so then do we want to schedule a meeting, special meeting date for discussion from Mr. John Curtis to come and answer some of our questions? Mr. John Curtis from Summer Camp. Do we want to do that?
Fine with me.
Yep.
Sure. Save that.
And I would like to be able to discuss with y'all, because there's no real way to do it except at a meeting, what, our disposition on decommissioning and disposition of the building that we just left here. So,
We need to discuss that.
yes, we do need to discuss it.
We need to get power cut off, yeah.
Yes, in fact, my husband just went over, when he was over there moving furniture out, and plugged that drink cooler over there. It was steady running. And there's all kinds of things running over there that have, you call ghost electricity, that are routers that are in the nest area that are still plugged in. And
Can we
running.
cut some of those main breakers off till we?
I don't think so. There's some lights in there that you can't turn off. They're on all the time, so I don't.
I know William and there was in there today moving stuff out, so him and Dusty. I mean, as soon as they get what they got to do, we need to start turning things off. I don't know how long it's gonna take them to do what they gotta do.
And I
They're
think,
disposing of the records that have met the retention. So Miranda and I was over there with them this morning and showed them what needed to be gotten rid of. And they got a good pile of it out today, but they still have some more. We're gonna work on it next week and see what we can get. But what we're trying to do is get it cleaned out as much as we can, and then put the items that we're not gonna take all in one place and try to get it all organized. Not just leave it like it is.
But I don't think we can leave it like it is, because I agree, we need to make some decisions on that building
Yeah, we
pretty
need to
quick.
schedule.
okay, so
We
then
have
then
some
we'll do
liability
that.
as long as we own it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so can we then have at our special meeting discussion regarding summer camp, and Mr. Curtis to come talk to us, and discussion regarding disposition and decommission and disposition of that, of the building there, the old city complex school building. Okay, so when is this a good time for everyone?
Ask your attorney, he's got the most business.
Sir, I'll let you know if I have a problem, go ahead and.
Okay, well,
comfortable with everybody, and I'll-
we know we like the daytime for special
Yeah, I like
meetings.
the daytime.
You do? You
Yeah.
like the daytime, 1:30?
How about-
Okay,
Not too
1:30
early.
at 13th.
say the 13th. Would that give us time
When the
to
sun's about
develop
right
questions
there,
for
right?
Mr.?
Well, he may not be able to show up by then.
The
Yeah.
13th of this month?
Well, we're thinking Mr. Curtis might not be able to come on that short
How
notice.
about the 27th
27th.
at 1:30?
We're gonna have a TDC meeting on that day. Any day that month, that 25th, 26th, not the 28th, I have an ARPC meeting on that day.
26th is good.
Wait, I'm trying to find my calendar.
Okay, and that's March 26th on a Tuesday.
February.
March?
February.
March or February.
I'm on February.
Oh,
That's
February.
important.
Well, that's February the 26th on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not
1:30?
available that day.
You're not available that day.
Where's not the problem?
You got a problem?
No, I'm good so far.
Everybody good?
I'm good.
No, no,
What day?
the 26th is a problem for Courtney.
Yes.
Yeah, I can do it as long as we do it at 1:30.
Okay.
All right. So February, we're gonna have a motion then for a special meeting,
I'll make a motion.
February 26th.
1:30.
Okay. We have that motion by Commissioner Millender. Second?
Second.
All right, sir. He's ready.
You ready to go?
Any discussion?
He is.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, and that motion carries, okay.
Make a motion,
Let's
we
adjourn, okay, we have a motion by Mr. Millender to adjourn, Commissioner Millender, second? Second to adjourn,
Yes.
somebody,
I'll second.
all right.
I'll get us out of here.
Okay, that's Walden,
I was
second,
waiting for him to do it.
any discussion?
I was camping
All right,
out.
all in favor? Okay, that motion carries.